and I'm touching upon all the different topics of the different departments, be it public diplomacy or press and spokesperson, or the political department, or civil society department, and so on. And I did keep to myself the responsibility to deal with both houses of parliament, as I love politics, and this is still the core of our job here and what we do. So I do a little bit of everything, and of course that I do keep in contact with the different denominations and the different streams in the Jewish community. I see it not just as a professional mission of mine, but also as a personal mission of mine. And here I am tonight with you.
Tell us a little about who you're, did you bring family with you, or do you have a family, if you wish to tell us about that?
Sure. So I have a family. I'm here with my partner and with my son. I have a daughter in Israel. She's 22 years old. So she's no longer dragging along with her mother. My son is 19. He has finished high school here and will be going back to Israel. Sorry, I didn't mention the two dogs, the trailing dogs that are coming with me from one posting to the other. And I'll be back. I'll be going back to Israel this summer upon completion of 4.5 years. And my son will be drafted to the army. And I'll stay there for at least 3 years before my next posting, as I want to support my son during his military service.
And that will be a full ambassador's post, presumably, the next posting.
Well, as you know, in my former post, I was an ambassador, and I chose to come here in the Israeli system, in the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The vacancies are being published in advance, and it's like an open tender. You need to apply and you need to compete. And there is a committee that discusses the different candidates. So I came here by choice. Being a deputy ambassador in such a big and a flagship embassy is kind of a step that you need to take in order to later on being able to do some high managerial positions back at the headquarters.
Yeah, you're a career civil servant in the foreign ministry.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a career civil servant, and
because it would be fair to say that the ambassadorship in London is sometimes a political appointment.
Indeed.
And I wonder whether you're able to say anything about you've served under, I think, 2 ambassadors now. This is your second one, I believe. This one was certainly a controversial political appointment. I'm saying that. I'm not asking you to say whether you think that's the case, but from our perspective, the current ambassador was a controversial political appointment. Her predecessor, I think, had been a spokesperson, but tell us a little bit about the 2 ambassadors and what you can say about the styles and whether it's made any difference to you, whether you just continue the same job or whatever.
Well, the beauty in being a civil servant is that it doesn't matter what government comes to power. It doesn't matter who is being sent as your ambassador, as your boss. You continue to represent the policies of your government. There is absolutely no relevance to my personal opinions and personal inclinations. And I believe that the vast majority of my acquaintance here in the UK have no idea what are my personal opinions and what are my personal political inclinations. And it's just not relevant because I'm a professional diplomat and even a political appointee. Once he's being appointed as an ambassador, it means that he is now an official representative of the State of Israel, and he is committed to represent the policies of the government, and he creates a Chinese wall between his personal opinions and his current role and the policies that that he represents. And
well, we've got a she for the first time. I think your current ambassador is the first woman ambassador in the United Kingdom, if I'm correct.
Indeed, I have to tell you that this is something to celebrate. You know, I've been here for 4.5 years, and for those of you who have visited the Israeli embassy, then you know we are located in Kensington, and we have this magnificent building, heritage building. And when you enter the embassy, on your left there is a wall with photos of all former ambassadors, and every morning for the last 4.5 years, I'm entering the building, looking to my left, and I see these photos of 19 white, middle-aged men looking at me.
Out the Downing Street corridor.
And for the first time, you know, I'm coming to the embassy, and I know that there is a woman ambassador, relatively young, not coming from an Ashkenazi descent. And I think that this is something to celebrate.
Well, I've not met her yet, but anyway, I want to ask you one other question before I open some of the questions. Tell us a little bit about your current encounter with the progressive communities in this country, because I know you've been to quite a number.
Indeed, I've been to quite a number, the same way that I've been to quite a number of encounters and meetings and events of the Orthodox community or the Masoreti community or the Reform community. As a representative of the State of Israel, for me, it is important that every member of the Jewish community will feel that will feel the connection to the State of Israel, and me as a representative of the State of Israel, I want you to feel welcomed. And I know that you might not always feel completely welcome in Israel when it comes to the policies of the government, but you should know that the tent is wide enough for everyone. And every Jew, it doesn't matter what are his beliefs, has a strong connection to Israel. I believe in it, and it doesn't matter whether his political views are to the left or to the right, whether he's more liberal and more progressive or more conservative in his views. The connection is there. I believe that the love to Israel is the same love, and I acknowledge also the pain that maybe some streams in the community has when it criticizes Israel. I understand that it comes out of a genuine place, and I think that the beauty of it is that we can have this dialogue and that we can listen to one another. As you said before, even if we disagree on certain things, or if there are disagreements between the policies of the government of Israel and the way that you would like to see some of the things, we are still one family. We can still have respectful disagreements. We can talk about it. Sometimes we might be a little bit angry at each other, but it's important for us to be able to see each other's point of view. And I hope that in my 4.5 years here, I managed to give the members of the liberal and the reform and the progressive communities here the feeling that I'm here for them as well. I will always listen to them. I will always accept them, whether it is at the embassy when they have something to protest about, whether it is to be the official representative of the State of Israel in their official functions. I think this is where we are.
Well, I don't think my former members would doubt that about you, but I don't think it's any secret that some of our members were quite offended by what they perceived as the ambassadors. How do I put it as politely as I can? Some would say even contemptuous, but at least challenging comments on progressive Judaism. Now, obviously, she made the statement, I am told, and I'm reporting this third hand. So that she was a proud Orthodox Jew, which of course is everybody's right to be a proud Jew or whatever stripe they want to. But she is perceived to have made comments and or perceived to have not been as welcoming to our members as we would have expected from an ambassador, even one who strongly disagreed with us.
Danny, again, I think that things that politician says as a politician should be kept out of the equation when he enters an official position as an ambassador. And I really think that the ambassador thinks exactly the same way as I've now presented the need to reach out to every Jew. And I know that it is personally important for her that every Jew, with no relation to his religious denomination, will feel strong connection to the state of Israel and will know that the state of Israel will always be his home. And I have to say, you don't have to be diplomatic. I do have to be diplomatic, but
not with me, you don't. Maybe generally you do, but not with me.
But it's just you and me here tonight, right? But I want to say something. You know, I know that liberal Judaism many times have criticism on the state of Israel for not receiving the platform, for not being heard, for not being listened to. And here you have an ambassador who reaches out to every stream, who is making herself available to appear in any Zoom event or hopefully soon physical event, to take questions, to hold dialogue, to listen to what you and your community and your constituents have to say. And it should be appreciated and it should be received in a respectful manner, because even if you have very, very, very strong misgivings about things that she might have said in the past, okay, she is now the official representative of the state of Israel, and she needs to be respected as such. And I think it goes both ways. You are expecting respect, it should go both ways. And I can tell you that on the embassy's side, there is all the goodwill to reach out and hold this dialogue. And you know better than me, coming from the liberal stream, right? You know, from Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai, you know the difference. Bet Shammai heard only Bet Shammai. Bet Hillel listened both to Bet Hillel and to Bet Shammai.
Well, I
was very liberal in listening to the different views, and sometimes adopted Bet Shammai's views and sometimes adopted Bet Hillel views.
And I'm going to take that rebuke from you, having A, never met the current ambassador, and B, not list. And I wasn't present at the event that she was involved in with our movement. So I can genuinely say I've never met her and never even seen her. And that may be something for the future. Meanwhile, just tell my final question to you, and then I'm going to hand over to others. A little bit about what's it like? You know, you've not been able to get home, perhaps, or are you able to get home? You know, with the virus backwards and forwards, and I know there are diplomatic paths and non-diplomatic paths. And tell us a little bit about home, and then finally your most memorable United Kingdom event so far. And
you're trying to get me into trouble. The most memorable one.
And then we'll open it up to the floor.
Sure. Well, like you rightly said, it's been a very, very difficult year. I know that it's been a very difficult year for all of us. It's been a difficult year in Israel, a difficult year here in the UK, and I know that it's been especially difficult year to the Jewish community, especially in the first wave. The community has suffered great losses, and we realize it. And we went through this together as diplomats. We were here in the UK. We couldn't go back. I have an 80-year-old mother who celebrated her 80th birthday alone at home. We had a Zoom party. I ordered her a chef's meal from a restaurant because only takeaways were available in Israel. So she sat and ate her chef's meal over Zoom with me. And this is how we celebrated her 80th birthday. It touched all of us. And we went through this together, both as individuals and I would say also as countries on the bilateral level between Israel and the UK. I can tell you a lot of consultations, a lot of roundtables, a lot of sharing best practices. At a certain point also shipping ventilators from Israel to the UK when you were at the height of the pandemic in March and April. Me, myself, I was sick, as I know, as many of you. Thankfully, both the UK and Israel are now emerging out of the pandemic. Both of our countries are experiencing an extremely successful vaccination campaign. And I have to congratulate the UK for developing a vaccine, which is a huge achievement. And it's been very tough. I can tell you that the profession of diplomacy is a profession that is heavily leaning on your ability to create personal connections, on dialogue, on exchange of views. And it's been so tough to do it over Zoom. It's been so tough not to be able to have this personal connection. And of course, some issues are highly sensitive and cannot be discussed over these digital platforms, which creates another level of difficulty. And but again, we see the light. We see the light, and we're getting out of it. Thank God. And we try to gain whatever can be gained out of it. Every cloud has a silver lining. We managed to reach out new communities, distance audiences through this digital platform. So we try to get to make the most out of it.
Excellent. All right. I'm now going to turn to some of our questioners. So Philip Raphael has a question about the Biden administration and Iran.
Hi there. Can you hear me? Hi there. Hi there, Deputy Ambassador. I was just wondering what your thoughts were on Israeli-US relations, really with the Biden administration. I know there's obviously a vocal, a number of Democrat politicians who are very anti-Israel. And then you've obviously got the proposed Iran nuclear deal being talked about. So, yeah, I was just interested to get your thoughts on the Democratic Biden relationship with Israel for the next however many years.
Thank you, Philip.
Thank you. Should I answer now, or you want to take several questions?
Yeah, let's have a look at that one, and then we'll take that one.
Sure. So, Philip, thank you very much for this extremely important question. As you said, there is new administration with new policies when it comes to the Middle East, and I think in general. And we are all now rebuilding our connection with the new professionals. But what I can say is that we are very lucky that Israel is a non-partisan issue in the United States. You might have a more critical administration, more or less critical administration, but at the end of the day, we're talking about strategic relations that are bipartisan, and Biden is a long-time friend of Israel. He's visited Israel many times in the past, and we have no doubt about his friendship and his good intentions and his commitment to the security of the state of Israel and to the prosperity of the state of Israel. Obviously, there is a different approach being taken now, not just by the United States, but by the international community towards Iran, trying to see what can be done in order to bring them back to the JCPOA, to the agreement. Unfortunately, I think that the Iranians have no good intentions. I think that one cannot roll back time. We cannot treat these negotiations as if we are back in 2015, because the knowledge that was acquired in these years and the technological breakthroughs and their achievements when it comes to enrichment of uranium and the number of centrifuges, and I don't want to get into too technical details, but you cannot roll back the knowledge, you cannot roll back the technical achievements, and hence, and we are now in a new situation. And I think that there is agreement across the board, even in the Biden administration, that the former agreement, the JCPOA, was not thorough enough. It did not give good enough mechanisms when it comes to verification, when it comes to military sites, when it comes to the ballistic missile program, which is advancing, when it comes to the supervision of the International Atomic Agency, and of course the Sunset Clause. So the Biden administration, I think just yesterday there was a statement that a public statement that the gaps are really wide, and it's upon the Iranians now to create some kind of trust among the international community.
Phil,
I'm not sure that's going to happen anyway.
Okay, all right. I'm going to read another question now. It says, at what point will Israelis make the right moral choice and get out of the occupied territories, get rid of illegal settlements, and stop standing by and doing nothing when settlers and others pull down houses and olive trees of Palestinians and call for the death to Arabs? The person adds, it's shameful. I leave that to you, Ambassador. Did you hear the question?
Yes, I heard the question. Well, as you know, there are two sides to each conflict. And I think that it's about time that the Palestinians will get back to the table. And when they'll get back to the table, then we are able to discuss and to reach solutions to all the most central topics that were left in the Oslo Agreement to the final discussion stage. And I think that presenting settlements as the obstacle to peace, I think it's a false premise, because according to this logic, by now we should have had great relations with Gaza. Right? We evacuated our settlements from there. We evacuated the kibbutzim and the moshavim and our population. And we all know what we received in return. I think that Israel has a record of embracing the formula of land for peace when it knows that it has a committed and serious partner which is willing to commit to the end of the conflict. And you can look at the peace agreement that we signed with Egypt. We evacuated Yamit, and this was very painful. We evacuated the citizens from there. and of course we demolished their houses. The same in the peace agreement with Jordan. We reached all kinds of creative agreement of renting each other's agricultural lands and supplying water to one another and so on, when we realized that there is a commitment there. And as I mentioned before, we did the same with Gaza. So I think that Israel has quite a good record of commitment, but I think that there are two sides, and it seems to me that under the current Palestinian leadership, time is not ripe, conditions are not ripe for them and for Mahmoud Abbas to take the necessary steps in order to advance towards some kind of an agreement. And I have to say that this is a pity, because we are in a time of opportunity, both because of the Abraham Accords that created new reality of legitimacy in the region. The Gulf countries can become another side to the solution of this conflict through introducing incentives to the sides. It can be economic incentives, it can be political incentives, not just those that we've already signed peace agreement with, but other Gulf countries. So in terms of a regional atmosphere, there is time of opportunity. I believe that the change of administration in the United States is also time of opportunity for the Palestinian leadership. Under the Trump administration, they boycotted the United States, they refused to come to the table, and so on. So now there is a new administration. Here's an opportunity for them to come to the table in a more favorable to their perception, favorable international environment. So I think it's a pity. It's a missed out opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Now, I don't think Derek Sharp is here. I don't think Paul Lacre is here. I don't think Iris Singer is here. If any of them are, maybe they'll indicate by sending me a note in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to Rosette Rosenberg. Is Rosette Rosenberg here? I think she is.
Yes. Hello, I'm here. Oh, hello. Yes, I'm here.
I can't see you, but maybe somebody can.
I'm here.
Ah, okay. Do you want to ask your question?
I wrote it down. I can't remember what it is, though. I
can read it for you if you wish.
Yeah, please, could you read it, please? It's because I can't remember how I phrased it. Thank you very much.
Says, I am concerned that the basic ethical foundations of Judaism are being eroded in Israel, and I'm finding it very difficult to witness this. Please, could you comment? Thank you.
Hi, Rosette. Good evening. Thank you for your question. I think that a part of the beauty, though sometimes challenging beauty about Israel, is really how free it is, how pluralistic it is, and how to put it in English, its ability really to contain really wide range of opinions and worldviews. And I know that sometimes these opinions and these worldviews are being expressed in manners that seems aggressive, and especially if you're coming, if you live abroad, and Israeli mentality sometimes, excuse me, can be a little bit rough. But at the same time, I have to say that I have a lot of trust both in Israeli society and the ability of different forces in the Israeli society to know what is right. And I have a lot of faith and a lot of trust also in the judicial system in Israel that is there sometimes when it's needed, to create checks and balances and to know where to raise a red card, right? And to signal to some elements in the society that they've crossed the line. And all in all, I can tell you, I know that things in Israel are very tense, and I know that Israel became very polarized. And it's a reflection also of the political situation that we're in the last 2 years. But I do believe that, again, that this is a situation that is being balanced and is being contained. And the fact that we can talk about it and we can raise these concerns, and the fact that there is an open discussion about it, it's a very good sign, and it's a kind of, for me, it's kind of an insurance policy, if you like. As long as the system is that open and that tolerant and that democratic, and when needed, there is an involvement of the judicial system, and the judicial system is independent and robust, I still prefer it over any other alternative.
So Sharon, let me put one question on my end, which I find the most difficult, actually. That when you think that liberal Jews were involved in the founding of the state, and here we are 70 plus years later, and we're still waiting for equal rights for our rabbis, to have synagogues, mikvaot. I mean, the question is, be patient. Be patient. And I get the argument. There's always something more important, like peace, and I agree. Peace is more important than the rights of liberal Jews in Israel. But it is a running sore, certainly for members of our community, that countries like Norway, Sweden, most of Europe, even the Soviet, even Russia, allows our rabbis to perform in a way in which they can't perform in Israel. How long is it going to be, even with Gilad in the Knesset?
Well, first of all, I want to start by saying that I recognize your pain, and I think that we are far from being perfect. But at the same time, and while, when you make this list, when you make a list, it doesn't sound too encouraging, because there's still so many grievances and so many things that are yet to be taken care of. But at the same time, I think that it's important to look at the trajectory and to look at the tendency. And the trajectory is a positive one. The trajectory is a positive one. We just had the court verdict about the conversion, the Kotel issue, again, the Robinson Arch, although it has not been completed, yes, and there are still some symbolic elements of it that has not been fulfilled, but the practical part of it has been created on the ground. And the fact of the matter is that you have Gilad Kariv now as a member of a Knesset, and the fact of the matter is that you see in Israel more and more families that are joining your stream of Judaism. So again, there is a lot of work. There is still a lot of work to be done, and it's complex. It's very complex because of the fact that there is no separation of religion and state in Israel, and there is a very, very intertwined system there. But I think it's important for us to look at the trajectory. And yes, it's an uphill work, but I think that Israel is in the right direction, and I'm sorry that I'm here to say that it will take time and you need patience and these are long processes. You're fed up with this. I know, but
let me tell you, I'd give you the kotel. If you could give liberal Judaism equal rights in Israel, you could have the kotel tomorrow. That's my private view. And were it not that my good friend was the founder of Women at the Wall, I'd be less sympathetic. I'd have nobody at the wall myself, but that's a different question. Anyway, we're now going to open the floor. So I think, Paul, you've arrived. Is Paul Lacra here? Your question, Paul? Is Paul Lacra here? Well, whoever he is.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
The ambassador, the deputy ambassador can hear you, Paul.
Right. Okay. So my question was really about what is the current policy of the Israeli government regarding peace, the peace process, because it seems to me that most Jewish people, both inside Israel and in the diaspora, would benefit from peace. And I'm not sure that I see that as a target of the current government. So would you like to comment?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Paul, for your question. I would start by saying that currently we don't really have a government. We have a transition government, and as you know, our political system is in a kind of a limbo, and we don't know yet how is the next government going to look like, if at all. But I have to say that it doesn't matter what government was in power in Israel. Israel has always and will always pursue peace. It is Israel's interest to have peace with its neighbors. It is Israel's interest to be able to invest more in the prosperity, not just of Israel, but of the entire region. So that we can all live in peace and security and prosperity. It is our interest. And the fact of the matter is that wherever we can, we are signing peace agreements, we are reaching out, we are warming relations with different governments in the Middle East, whether we have diplomatic relations with them or not, because again, we believe that this will create a more stable Middle East. It will strengthen the moderate camp in the Middle East. And at the end of the day, Israel is also a force for good in the world. Israel has knowledge and technology when it comes to water management and agriculture and medicine. And we share all this with the rest of the world. And we share all this with our neighbors. And I can tell you that even with our Palestinian neighbors, although they would prefer that these things will not be out in the open and will not be published, I can tell you that there is cooperation, technical assistance, trainings, sharing best practices, and cooperating on many issues. One of them is the pandemic, for example, very strong cooperation, joint command and control room, training for medical staff, transfer of PPEs. You know probably that by now we have vaccinated over 100,000 Palestinians, and so on. So it's Israel's interest to have peace, but again, you cannot do peace all by yourself. And in order to make peace, you have to be willing to make compromises. And I do hope that our Palestinian neighbors will manage, first of all, to have a unified leadership that will be able to represent their people and will get the legitimacy from the Palestinian people in order to make bold moves. Because at the end of the day, Mahmoud Abbas is now 85 years old, if I'm not mistaken, And I wonder, how does he want to go down in history? What has he done in order to promote the Palestinian cause? I'm not sure that his leadership will be remembered as such that actually took the necessary bold steps in order to come to some kind of a compromise and an agreement with Israel.
Thank you. Anybody from the floor now? You can either unmute yourself, I think, or put your hand. I can't see any hands up, but I'm happy to. Is that right, Administrator? If we can just unmute yourself, or does it have to be us? Anybody?
No. Yes.
Philip, you want a second go, do you? Let me just see if there's anybody who wants a first go.
Yeah.
Anybody
Okay.
for a first go? Stanley, I can see. Stanley Volk, are you there?
I am here. I'm here.
So speak to the Deputy Ambassador, please.
Okay, Deputy Ambassador, I must say I'm very impressed by your enthusiasm and your long answers, which entirely made sense to me. And I'd agree with your early statement that when an ambassador comes to a country, they are appointed by the government or the coalition, as you said, as you pointed out, that sent them, and that's their qualifications. And I must say I was disappointed that this was queried in the original interview which was a week ago, which Danny was not there.
Correct.
And that's all I've got to say, because I think that you should respect the office, and the previous comments of the person are irrelevant. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. So Stanley's agreeing with, I think, what Sharon said, which is, to be very clear, one view was that the ambassador should apologize for the comments she previously made. And the other view was that those comments had been made as a politician before she was appointed ambassador.
Exactly.
Having been appointed ambassador, she, as it were, transforms into a new person, and we should have her treat her as such. I think that's a fair summary of the two sides, if I can be there. And I can see Leslie's got a hand up now. And I can see Tamara. So I can see Leslie, and then Tamara, and then I will come back to Philip if nobody else indicates. Leslie.
Sorry, I must just comment on what Stanley says. I can imagine if somebody came here as an ambassador who had made anti-Semitic remarks, that the response would be rather different to what you just said, Stanley. But I'm going to repeat the question that Danny kindly asked on my behalf. You know, I asked what the issue is about settlers, extreme settlers, or people tearing down olive trees and saying death to the Palestinians. When are we going to see some kind of moral courage of the Israeli government and people, civil servants as well, making some moral statement that that is not right, whatever the situation in terms of the pieces? Tearing down people's olive trees, lemon trees, calling death to Arabs is not the kind of country I want to support, and I won't support it.
Thank you, Leslie. You asked when are you going to hear even civil servants take moral ground here. So when? Right now, I can tell you that settlers' violence is appalling, and it should be treated in the harshest manner by the law enforcement authorities. And how do you call it? Like ripping out someone's trees or property against the law is a violation of the law, and it should be treated in the harshest manner. And the same way, violence of Palestinians against Jews and Israelis should be treated in the same manner. I mean, this is not the government's policy. The government's policy does not support violence of any kind by anyone, and this should be very clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to let Tamara come in now because she's not spoken yet.
Good evening, Deputy Ambassador. I'm sorry to come back to this question, but I wonder whether the Israeli government appreciates just how offensive and how alienating it is for the progressive Jewish community in this country to have had Tzipi Hatovely appointed as ambassador, in view both of her views on progressive Judaism and also on her wider political views, which are very widely perceived by our members as flagrantly racist, and make it a subject of real dispute and difficulty, much as you may say that she wishes to reach out to us and to hear us and to make herself available. It's difficult for us to open our spaces to her, knowing how offensive that is to so many of our members. And it does feel as if it may be easy for a professional civil servant to draw those Chinese walls, but perhaps even more in view of the fact that the positions that she voiced before coming to this appointment are now no longer up for discussion or up for grabs, means there's no potential to resolve or address that offence, and no capacity to feel that we can move past it and see the role as simply symbolic of the position of the Israeli government or the Israeli state. And insofar as we really know her views are in conflict with and don't align with the position of the Israeli government, to hear her articulating those views just feels like the joke is on us, really, at some level. And I feel like it's so different in atmosphere, the conversation we're having with you. You speak to us as if you're hearing us, as if you're interested in what we have to say, as if you want to give a reasoned response. And seeing Tzipi Hatovely speak either to liberal Judaism or, for example, on Newsnight, it's combative, it's the manner of a populist, extreme nationalist politician. It doesn't feel as if there's an open dialogue or an exchange of views. So I just wonder whether what the intention was in making this appointment, how we're meant to feel, whether the Israeli government is indifferent to the views of or contemptuous of diaspora Jews, whether the feeling is that we'll support no matter what, or that our support is irrelevant, and whether there's an understanding of just how high the barrier is in her appointment to us feeling that connection that you've spoken so movingly about.
Tamara, I will repeat what I said before. She used to be a politician. She is now an ambassador. And her personal opinions or things she said in the past are absolutely irrelevant. And I would say even more than this. I would say that no country consults its diaspora, its diaspora on the entity of the diplomatic representatives that they are appointing, not just Israel, but any other country. This is a sovereign decision of the government that is dispatching the diplomat. And I want to say that I'm not sure. And I think that there is a room here also for you to self-reflect. I'm not sure that you have given her a fair chance. I'm not sure that you really listened to what she had to say. I'm not sure that you were not combatant when receiving her. And I'm not sure that you held not you personally, yes, but liberal Judaism. I'm not sure that you held a respecting dialogue with her. And I was on this event, on the previous event, and I have to say that and here again, I might step out of my diplomatic shoes.
It's fine. You're going home.
But it was so disappointing for me personally. So disappointing to see the way that you behaved towards the ambassador. It was disappointing on so many levels. The first and foremost, this is an Israeli ambassador. To be received in such contempt, this is really, I was shocked and very disappointed. And I was disappointed as a woman that a liberal community is receiving a woman ambassador in such manner. And I'm not sure that a man ambassador would have been received in the same manner. I'm sorry to say that. It hurts me to say that. And personally, I was disappointed, not as a diplomat, but personally, as someone who has a very warm place in its heart to your movement and to your movement and to your community here in the UK. So I really think I understand. I hear the passion in your voice. I understand that you feel offended by things that were said in the past, in different contexts, in different circumstances. But to take this and to use it in the manner that is being used, I don't think it will advance anyone anywhere. And I do expect that because you are liberals, that you will have better ability to accept someone who thinks differently than you, who is representing a government that you disagree with its policies. And frankly, I don't think you want to have an Israeli ambassador who sits in Newsnight and is not combative. I really don't think you want to see this.
Okay, we're fast approaching the end of our hour, but I do want to say to Sharon that answer shows your diplomatic skills, if I might say so. We hope the ambassador will reflect on her. I mean, I wasn't present and I haven't seen the video or anything, but no doubt both Liberal Judaism, its representatives, and the ambassador and her staff can reflect on what each side perceived happened on that evening and how we might, if we can, move forward from that experience. And as I say, I wasn't present and I've never met the ambassador, so I can say that genuinely, having not been there. But I do know there was hurt, certainly some of our members, that she felt unable to say certain things. And I am hearing from you that she felt that we didn't treat her in the way that maybe we should have done.
No, you're hearing from me what I felt, not what she feels.
Sorry, yes, forgive me. Yes, I understood. Sorry, forgive me. Yes, thank you for clarifying that. Now, we've probably got time for just, well, I'll take one more if anybody hasn't spoken who wishes to speak. Simon Bencher.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Simon. So good to see you.
Oh, it's amazing to see you. I just wanted to end going from a combative conversation to a warm one from me. I've got to say that in the time that we've worked together and we were together, I've got to say that you were a marvelous Deputy Ambassador for Israel. You were a good friend to Liberal Judaism. And personally, and for the movement, I'd like to thank you for the support that you gave us and have given us. Certainly during my time in chair, you joined me and you joined Rabbi Charlie and Danny on numerous occasions. And I just want you to know that you'll always have good friends in the UK, people that think so warmly of you. And just thank you. And I wish you just continued good fortune and good luck in your wonderful career.
Simon, thank you so much for these very kind and warm words. And you should know that everything I've done and everything I do it wholeheartedly.
Sharon, when do you return? When is your mission finished here?
Probably by the beginning of August.
Ah, okay. So we still have lunch to have before in my garden.
With pleasure.
All right, listen, friends, we must close now. I'm going to ask Rabbi Charlie Baginski, the Chief Executive Officer of Liberal Judaism and one of our co-hosts with Finchley Progressive Synagogue. I should have said at the beginning and forgot to say so that Rabbi Rebecca Burke would have been with us. I wouldn't have been, I would have been present, but I wouldn't have been doing the talking. Rebecca's not been well. She's recovering well from her operation, hopes to be back at the shul this Shabbat. But I have been her inadequate replacement during this period. And I'm going to ask Rabbi Charlie Baginski, the Chief Executive Officer at Liberal Judaism, to conclude our evening with a particular thanks to Liberal Judaism and to Finchley Progressive Synagogue.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deputy Ambassador Sharon. I want to echo what Simon said. And Simon, it's such a delight to have you with us. The relationships with Israel and with the embassy is centered on relationship. And as Danny opened with this idea of we can disagree and it's how we disagree, we also heard you mention several times tonight. But I'm often asked by those who are critical of Israel why we spend so much time in our relationship with the embassy. And it's because we believe it's important. And I know that your door to us has always been open, and that even when it's been a struggle about things that we've said, or as you heard tonight, the way that we've said them, that you've continued to be here and continue to be in the relationship. And I think that that's so present for us as liberal Jews, which is even when we struggle, we want to be present in that relationship, and we want to make sure that both of our doors to each other are open, because it's in that very Jewish wrestling of relationship that we and the theological belief that God lies maybe in the constructive conflict, in our dialogue for a belief in something bigger than ourselves. And so I want to thank you that even when it was clear from what you said that there was a discomfort about how the previous conversation with the ambassador had gone, that you still are here, and that we are still here, and we are in this, both of us, 2 feet in. And I want to tell you personally how much I appreciate that, and I've always appreciated that with you. We will miss you. We really will miss that, and I hope that we will continue a conversation even when you're not the Deputy Ambassador for the United Kingdom, because I feel like we've learnt from each other over this period, and I think that your legacy of being 2 feet in to relationship will continue long after you're not here, and it's appreciated. And thank you very much, and thank you, Rabbi Danny Rich, for engaging in such a and holding this conversation tonight. And thank you, Finchley Progressive Synagogue, as always, for hosting a really wonderful conversation. And I look forward to the next one. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.